Here's the thing about your movie, why I made a curator's pick of the Hollywood Fringe Festival. Community, heart,
What's going on, people? This is the Film Review. We are the husband and wife team that review movies, music, culture, and whatever else comes to mind. I'm Crazy D.
I'm Tracey.
And welcome to the Film Review, movies, music, culture, politics, and society film magazine. Welcome to the Film Review, movies, music, culture, and whatever else comes to mind. Each week, the husband and wife team take you on a discussion on culture in movies, music, politics, and society. Brought to you by Lordlandfilmsdotcom. So get ready for this week's The Film Review.
What's going on, people?
Hey.
We are the husband and wife team from the Film Review, movies, music, culture, politics, society, and whatever else comes to mind. Still, I'm Crazy D.
Tracey.
And we review culture in movies, music, politics, and society. And do we have a great one for you today?
Yeah.
Let's first do this tag right here. We're reviewing...
Hey, Roland.
Hey, what's going on, Roland? Chiming in. See you watching. We're reviewing True Detective.
Season 3.
Uncle Drew. It deserves another look. And then we're going to be talking about the 21 Savage situation. Just being arrested on Sunday for being here illegally. Well, not deported yet. He's detained for deportation. Right? So let me do some population here. So this is the third day of fourth day of Black History Month, right? Yeah. So how is your Black History Month going? Yeah. Right? So how is it going? Let us know. Type in, and we'll correspond. We'll dialogue with you up here because this is interactive television here. The Film Review.
Well, to set up True Detective while you're populating. This season, the detectives are in Arkansas. Your Arkansas State Police.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I saw that Mahershala Ali was going to be the star of this season, I was excited about watching it. He's a good actor, so you know that it's going to be a great season. And it is so far.
Yeah, it is. It is. We got to binge watch and catch up on, what was happening as far as the show was concerned.
Yeah.
And so let's set up. First of all, let's talk about 21 Savage, though. It's interesting about. We just came off of talking about the invasion of the Black Body Snatchers. Right. We just finished talking about that in episode 44, and I was speaking on the immigrants that are coming here who are pretty much taking our place as far as on television and in movies and things, and you see these people and you're like, well, wait a minute, but their politic is not the same politic as someone that was born in this country, right? That was born here and whose people have been here since 1619, and there's a difference. So, looking at what just happened to 21 Savage. Now, you would think that 21 Savage was straight born in the United States with the how can I say, the conversation that he's putting across to the people. You would think that he was born here, right? But in actuality, he was born in England and came here. And what the story is that his parents came over, and thus he was on a non-immigration limited visa to come to the United States.
He was 7 years old.
Yeah. I would say so. Right. Because it was 11 years ago. Because it was 05. It expired in 06. And it's 2019 now. So that was 13 years ago.
Okay.
And so it expired. And so it's really a strange situation when you look at it, that he's here, he's rapping, and he's talking a conversation that you would think was from a people who have been in the struggle,
Right.
you know what I'm saying, who have turned inward their anger onto themselves.
Right.
There's a style of hip hop that talks about that. If not all of it, talks about having to take care of things that happen while in the street, right?
Right.
And so you would think that he was from here, but however, he is not. All right. So going back to the origins of hip hop, as I continue to populate, so excuse me for not looking up at the screen, but I'm going to continue to populate here. Looking at the origin of hip hop music, right? Let me put this up. Hip hop was started in the Bronx by Kool Herc. Now, Kool Herc is also an immigrant of Jamaican descent. He came here, and he's a immigrant of Jamaican descent. And I always wondered why. There was how can I put this in the most understanding and caring terms from a person whose people have been here since 1619, in the most caring way. I always wondered why there was a division or a thought process that people outside of the tri-state, once hip-hop started to spread out across the country, like, I always thought that hip-hop was a black art form created by black people who came from America, okay? So as it starts to branch out, starts out in the Bronx, Jamaica, Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, Long Island, Strong Island, it starts to get into and develop and go around people who have been in this country, not necessarily immigrants. So then it starts to spread, goes through the pro-black movement with Public Enemy, you know what I'm saying, pushes out. Then it moves over to, then it branches out into the West Coast. People who migrated from Mississippi to go during World War II to go out to California for better jobs. At the same time, the sheriff's department went down and found ex-soldiers who were also affiliated with the Klan to become police officers to control the new influx of Negroes that came to California at the time. And so this is what the stories that they were telling were about Rampart and the police and things like that. And these were people who were here, right? Who are descendants of 1619, who went through the slave trade, right? So there's either in this world, there's either colonization or slavery, right? Basically the same thing, except for the first we speak of slavery. People were brought to another land in 1619 to kick all this off, right? We're talking about America now. We can go and talk about how it all spread through the Americas and then it came up to North America. But we're talking about North America now, 1619, right? And then there's colonization that was happening where the colonizers came into someone else's country and took it over from them, right? And we already talked about that is a totally different mind state than what it's a totally different mind state than what the mind state is of people who were brought as slaves and then turned around and became the culture of the country, right? So we're talking now, so as I'm saying that, I'm giving you how it moved. Also, Mississippi moving to Chicago, migrations for the factory jobs. Alabama moving into Cleveland, Ohio for the factory jobs during World War II, making a better way for the people to also get away from Jim Crow, right? So this is what's happening at the time to have an understanding of it. So now fast forward to when hip hop hits and it spreads out, and I always wondered why the people in New York City seemed to be kind, seemed to have a problem with those who were also producing their brand of hip hop in their area. And it's more than just, okay, we started this and we made it. It has to do with immigrants and those that were here in 1619 and what an immigrant population will talk about and what a people who were in the fight and in the struggle will talk about. And that's what the real difference is. And so now bringing this into let me type this. We are on. Let me put this right here. That's next word. So now we're talking about now the new set of immigrants that are here that we talk about, the invasion of the black body snatchers, where their politic is more like, why don't you get up off your butt and do something because we were able to. But in actuality, if you were able to, you would have been able to do it in your own country. Don't come here and tell us about what we can do, because the reason why you're able to come in and do what you do is because of what we did. And we're so Pan-African driven that we see you as the same, but at the same time you won't see us as the same, right? So there's a problem. So now, my problem with the situation that we just discovered about 21 Savage is he was an immigrant that was born in England and then came here, and then my question to all of that is, can a person, just like we asked about Obama and now Kamala, can a person who comes from their situation where their fathers left, right? But in this situation, can a person come to America and they may sound a little different, right? They may dress different. They may act different, and they're coming into a situation where the black community, as far as bagging on each other and doing all that, that is a strong cultural thing where you have to get people up off of you. And what if you weren't able to get people up off of you and you hold some kind of resentment and you're not able to keep your culture, so you blend in and then take on other people's culture? Could it be that you hold hate towards those very same people who give you opportunity, right? Because you have to blend in with us, because the other people arguably, they have to say, to be kind, they're kind of milquetoast, and at the same time they treat you like dung, when you live in their particular neighborhoods. Could it be that the immigrant holds some kind of resentment towards those who are here who have already fought the struggle?
Okay, so, well, I'm not sure about 21 Savage's parents because they are older. And knowing other immigrants, and they'll tell you that their parents and aunts and uncles and grandparents, whatever, like they'll say, stay away from the blacks, and they have a derogatory term for black Americans,
which translates into raw animal. That's what it means.
Okay, so but as far as 21 Savage goes, compared to Obama and Kamala Harris, for me, he grew up in the black community. So he was raised here as a child, right? So unlike Kamala, and who grew up with her mother in Canada, and she states that she had a close relationship, it's in her book and everything, with her mother's Indian family. Although her father was Jamaican, there was no ties. She would visit her family in India every summer, and she lived in Canada with her mother and her sister. So, and she has a great, a close relationship with her aunt, who's also Indian. So she's immersed in the Indian culture, right? So she didn't grow up in a black community. So, and then President Obama, he was raised, in Hawaii by his grandparents. Mm-hmm. And his mother was around also, prior to her passing away, but his grandparents raised him. So unlike them, 21 Savage grew up in the black community, and he may not have had the same necessary views as black Americans as his elders, because that's why, like you were saying earlier, the song that him and J. Cole made.
Yeah, that's now. I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
See, what I noticed is when he came out, he's talking. It's basically, to tell the truth, it's destruction.
Yeah, but he said in the interview that he was younger, right?
Right.
So,
he was younger,
right? And
people who have been here and who have fought the struggle, they understand. We understand what's happening in the street, and we understand what's happening in the larger politics.
Right.
What the problem becomes is when people who are coming from another land that was colonized,
right,
and they come here and they take on the opinions of those who oppress, right? Who are oppressors here. Colonizers there, oppressors here, right? They take on the thought processes of the oppressor because the oppressor tells them to stay away from us. So there is the problem. So they come and intermingle in, then they get the jobs, and then they say, well, black people have to stand up and do that. But wait a minute, we've been standing up and doing it, but they somehow switched over what we fought for, and then they give it over to those who come to the country who look like us to do the invasion of the black body set. So now, what I noticed about 21 Savage, it was brutality first towards black people, music-wise, telling his story. Now he's had time to travel the United States and travel the globe in music, and he sees now. So that song with J. Cole is more introspective and more, but how much damage has been done. It's one thing if we as a group of people who have been here since 1619 talk about gangsterism or talk about what's happening in the streets. It's another thing when immigrants that intermingle in who don't necessarily actually understand the full complexity of the struggle and why it is the way it is, why the streets started happening to be the way it was, because Reagan put crack into the streets, and it's a battle, and people don't really understand that. Then it's disturbing to me that someone who whose people were not here since 1619 can put records out that talk about destruction within the black community. That's my point on it. That it's disturbing to me. It's disturbing. It's one thing if it's our own talking about it, because then they'll have records on there that talk about reconciliation. They talk about, you know what I'm saying, what's good in the hood. You see what I'm saying? But so that's what I'm saying. So with knowing where hip hop came from an immigrant background, but then once it spread out to people who had been here, who migrated into different areas, who were oppressed by the system, who then used it as an outlet to express what was happening in their particular neighborhoods, right? Then you have a group of people who come in who profit off of it, not to mention the others who are also invasion of the body snatchers, who may not even come from the culture that it was made from. But that's another discussion for another day. So now, looking at what's happening to 21 Savage, you know, and I just posted his new record with J. Cole. I said, oh, this is a new introspective type of him. I didn't know that he was not someone whose people were here already. I find that disturbing. Do you find that disturbing, or should he get a pass for putting out music that people listen to, going beyond what Tupac did with the tattoos on the face, forehead, all that? That seems to be another culture. But we thought because he was here that he was from us, and not really.
Yeah, because in the interviews he didn't say ever that. He just said what, Atlanta?
Yeah, he would say Atlanta. So he didn't say that I came here as an immigrant and I mixed into the music and I like the music and the culture so much. Because in actuality, if the immigrants could mix with the Caucasian Americans, they probably would, because their viewpoints are a little bit skewed, right? Then on, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, what do you take from it?
Well, you know, like I said, compared to Kamala Harris and Barack Obama, because he grew up, you know, with Black American, Native Blacks. Native Blacks. I think that he went through the struggle along with his friends, his guy friends. He knows what it's like to be harassed by the police. He knows what it's like to be turned away from a job. He knows what it's like to be judged because of the color of his skin. So he actually lived in the community and grew up among that. So, you know,
so he gets a pass for doing drill music.
Yeah, I think so, because he grew up here. But yeah, definitely. You know, he grew up here. So unlike Kamala Harris, who, you know, before she decided to run, I mean, my thing is, I just would hear things, and then you look at her record as what was she, district attorney? Yeah,
district attorney.
Prosecutor.
Right.
Attorney.
District attorney in California.
And if you look at her record, it's not very friendly towards black men and women, and a lot of grassroots black, you know, people within the community went to her about different issues and about the police brutality and about just like so many things, and she just brushed them off. But I understand, you know, because from seeing her interviews and her town hall and, you know, her book, and I understand why now she did not have a connection to black people and treated black people the way she did, because she did not grow up among black people. So her thought process is different. So not giving her a pass because she's not my candidate, but that's the difference between her and the 21 Savage. 21 Savage grew up in the black community, and so he knows what it's like. So yeah.
So he gets a pass for the music.
For me, yeah.
Okay. All right. So tell us what you think. Should 21 Savage get a pass? And being that he is, you know, not necessarily someone who was here from 1619 on, should someone who is not here from 1619 on be able to do the music? It's all interwoven. It's a deep politic because at the same time you have people who are not even of the culture doing the music now, but this is that struggle that has been here since 1619.
If you do the work, he seems to be now putting in the work with J. Cole, like being a voice, you know, for the community, you know. So you can't, with me, we have to be a little bit more sophisticated and not just vote for someone because of the hue of their skin. You have to look at their record and learn their politics because it affects you and your family, the policies, you know. So who is going to have their better interests? Is it going to be the community, or is it going to be big business and another culture instead of them looking out for your culture as well? So it's important to look beyond hue. And just because, what's the old saying? They say you might be my color, but you're not my kind.
Yeah, that was a key from Cleveland.
Yeah. So,
but at the same time, I look at it the same way as far as the music that's coming out. Just because you're my hue doesn't necessarily make you my kind. It all depends on what is your prime politic. When we hear the new artists coming out, now I have to start to ask, were your people here, or were your people immigrants that had to, they were forced to blend in with black people who they look like us. And so your politic is a little different. Like there's rappers who say, "Oh, I don't know nothing about that. I don't know nothing about that politic. I just want to make money and get the." And you've seen these people say that. Plus, ICE has been picking up the Latino community, right, and deporting. But I believe now, and this has probably been happening, but this person is the first big name person, to get caught up in the net of ICE, grabbing people to detain them for deportation back to their country because their visas expired or they came in here illegally and decided to stay, right? Or planned to stay, right? So this is now going to usher in the beginning of people who are considered black, who overstayed their visa or who are here illegally. This is going to usher in the beginning of the collection, the rounding up and detaining for deportation of people who people consider to be black. And what do we as a people think of that? We may be seeing it happened before, way back in the day with Slick Rick, when he was in trouble. My question is, how can a group of people who they know that they're here, you know what I'm saying, and they didn't do the right paperwork, didn't do the naturalization to be citizens, right? Take the pledge and learn everything that you need to know about the United States, or they came here on a temporary visa and then the visa expires. How can these people then be in the black community and then act tough towards the black people that were here? How can you do that and not think that one day you will call it? Or why would you disrespect people who brought you in with open arms? You see what I'm saying? So it happened before once. It happened back in the day with Slick Rick. And it's probably always happening, but this is like another big name, and I believe that this is now going to usher in, because they're trying to thin out the herd. And so this is now going to usher in the beginning of deporting people who are considered black from out of the black community. And what do we as a people feel about that when there's people out there amongst us whose people were here, who tell people, hold your own nuts? How do we feel about that? How do you feel about that? Being
Tariq Nasheed.
Yeah. How do we feel about that they're gonna thin out the herd because they're gonna start coming in with people who did not, and we may see more entertainers detained for deportation?
I think when Tariq Nasheed says, and like you were saying, the hold your own nuts thing, that's I think of it as what is it, like in the Olympics, and they're running with the torch, right? Mm-hmm. And then they're running and they pass the torch on to the person that's coming up behind them, right? So the civil rights movement, Native Blacks, blood, sweat, and tears, fought. We didn't leave. Our people didn't, like, if we're comparing ourselves to immigrants, we didn't leave our country to go somewhere else.
To make
our people was here and fought, and many people died, and sacrificed themselves for Native Blacks. Okay, so because our people did that, because our ancestors did that, it allowed other immigrants to come into this country.
Immigrants, not others. They're not others.
Oh yeah. When I say allow immigrants to come into this country, all immigrants, they were able to take advantage of more so than we.
The set aside.
Contrary to
what they think. What they think.
They were able to take advantage of affirmative action. That was actually for them.
It was actually for
under
us,
the guise, under the guise of us, they actually gave it to them, right? And so, as well as for Caucasians, also Caucasian women fell under the affirmative action banner.
By force.
Yeah. So, like, miss me with that whole affirmative action bull crap, because we were like. That wasn't even able to get the fruits of labor of our people's labor.
So the affirmative action was there to make sure that the playing field was equal.
In which they found a loophole.
Right.
And created one. So, but the thing is, as far as the hold your own nuts thing, everybody, so we carried the mantle, so now we're handing it back, right? Okay, so the next group of immigrants that's coming, right? You guys have to do what our ancestors did. Fight for the things that you feel that you should have in this country. And first of all, you should be fighting along with us instead of fighting against us, because we paved the way. So it's kind of like crazy. How many times are we going to be used for everyone else's cause? Right? But when we need people to stand with us, they're nowhere around. So so it's time for everybody to just, because our ancestors had to stay here and fight. I mean, we built this country, right? So although some of our people left and went to other countries to live, most of us and our ancestors, we're here in America. Like, unlike the immigrants who left where they came from
and then would come here,
right,
and act as if
and
they are
basically
better.
Shit on us. And thanks to us, we're the ones who opened up the door for you. So now it's
now we see a lot of the immigrants, the invasion of the black body snatchers, as I like to call it, on television, and you look at it, and then their views aren't necessarily right, and it's the strangest thing that you start to see them say white supremacy and racism, because it is coming home, because they can no longer slide under the radar, because the European Americans are still scared that they will be outnumbered. So this is what I'm saying.
The young man in Dallas that was killed, right, when a police woman busted into his apartment.
He was an immigrant.
And his mother was a diplomat, right?
So
from her country. So I mean, it's just like it's time for everybody to step up to the plate now. Everyone's got some skin in the game now, right? Always had, really, but so it's just time for everybody you have to step up. So
you have to step up. But what do we feel, or what do we think about them thinning out the herd? Because there are Haitians here, there are Jamaicans here, there are Dominicans here, and they don't necessarily consider themselves. Some do, some don't.
Black.
Don't consider themselves black, but they're intermingling in and getting the dollar. But some are here illegally, overstayed their visas. And what do we think about them thinning out the herd?
Their black one is convenient for them. You know.
Expand on that.
So, like for instance, previously when Cardi B first started on Love and Hip Hop, she considered herself, she's black. She said, I'm Dominican and Trinidadian black, right? So now she says colored now.
Oh, she's a person of color.
And she's a person of color now.
See those words you have to always watch out for, because
Camilla said she's colored.
Yeah, when you colored.
A woman of color.
A woman of color, not colored.
Not
but
black.
listen. When you hear that from people, then you have to ask them, were your people here from 1619? If they say, I am a woman of color, I'm a man of color, were you here? Were your people here from 1619, or were they immigrants? Right. And were you born here, or were you born over there? So my thing is,
like the flip-flopping back and forth.
We look at people who are black because we're so Pan-African thought process as black people. We always go further to find our history because they try to strip us of our history. And when we go back to research in these places, we find out that the people don't know as much as we have learned, and they are over there and they only know from when the country was colonized. Right. We will go back and tell them more about the kings and queens and the people who shaped the world before the 6,000 year beginnings of the Europeans. Right? And so when you're dealing with people who believe that, but then they come here and then they're told to stay away from us, but then they have to intermingle with us, and then they act rude and they act like that, but then they say that we're rude, but actually they act rude, and then they're put into these situations, and now that they're coming up and they're hiring them to tell the story, now they have to say it's white supremacy and racism. So my thing is, with the invasion of the black body snatchers, is make sure that you fight that battle, because the second generations are coming and the cops aren't going to be able to tell them apart.
They don't care.
And really they don't care, because like we said in episode 44, because this is episode 45, we talked about how they have maimed up, killed up, sodomized people who they know are not American black, native black, here since 1619. And so you have a reckoning. And even when the guy in Dallas was murdered by a police officer, right? Because we can call it murder, because she walked into his house, pulled the gun, said, I thought I was in in my house, whatever, her apartment or whatever. The mother came out and said, all lives matter. Didn't she say that?
Yeah, she did.
She said, all lives matter. Well, if the immigrants who take on the identity of black people come in the country and say all lives matter, well, it kind of like you get what you deserve, because all lives matter is a term used by those who are trying to downplay that black lives matter. When you say all lives matter, when they say all lives matter, they're only talking about a certain group of people who fit in a certain neighborhood, who buy a lot of guns because they think that the invading hordes are coming, when really their destruction is coming from on the inside with mass shooters who have all these guns, who have nothing to do with them. So that's what that is. So if you say her son died and she had a chance to stand up there and galvanize, and she says all lives matter, to me, my opinion, she didn't really think about her son in that moment. You know, but anyway,
everyone should be proud of their culture, because I'm proud of my culture. And black Americans, I mean, we've changed the world. I mean, inventors, from music to science, clothing, just like everything all around the board. Technology.
We took what was in the Bronx, when it moved to the West and the South, and in the Midwest, and took it and made it something that could generate and make money
around the world. So I'm proud of our culture, and I mean, it's just so funny now how everybody's, they're on like, you remember the kale kick? And I'm like, oh my gosh, please. My grandmother been cooking kale and collard greens and all that stuff since I was a baby. So
sweet potato pie, all
of that. So so everyone should be proud of their culture, but don't say, okay, but I'm not black though. But yeah, because when you go to your country, you go to the let's say the Dominican Republic, right? Then there's a class system there. The darker skinned Dominicans are treated not as well as the light skin, right? And then the Dominicans treat Haitians like crap, kicking them out of the Dominican Republic, right? So it's just like, come on. Now, different cultures, but you're all still black. And then I hate when it's convenient. See, then that gets really fake and phony. Like, for instance, what's her name? Zoe Saldana. Now, I knew her from Drumline, as well as other multiple black films that she had did like years ago, and she was a black actress then. So as soon as she became successful, all of a sudden, she's a Latina, which is fine.
Allegedly.
But fine, but you're a black Latina, right? So you can't say you're black when it's convenient. You're a black Latina. You're a black American.
Because we're so accepting, and this right here with 21 Savage, to me, is the demarcation point.
Black British. Estelle.
Right. it is the demarcation point to where we have to now, as a group of people who have been here since 1619, start to be more discriminate. Not discrimination, but more discriminate about who is in the circle. In other words, you have to have a certain type of belief to even be in the circle, and we're not going to even push and say that your music or anything that you say is good unless you're there to fight the cause.
Or I said Estelle, she could be from England, I don't know, or black English. But the point is, I'm not black.
You're Dominican.
What's that? Oh, I'm not black. I'm Spanish. No, Spanish is a language.
Yeah.
Really?
That's not a heritage.
It's just stupid.
Right.
You know.
Right. So if you have melanin in your skin and you have certain features, you are black. And period. Point blank. All the people talking about, well, that's not a national or a nation, what's the name? But that is heritage. There's a certain condition or a certain situation or a certain experience that there is a collective in saying that you are black. And that goes in global, because there are people who are in other countries who may not even get a chance to be in this country because they don't fit the bill of those who are letting in certain people, right? Who understand Pan-Africanism, understand what it is when you say that you are black, and what that means is a certain collective understanding that if it's colonialism or slavery, it's the same, and that no one is better than the other. Because I would say, just me, my opinion, if you're in the continent of Africa and you're in your country and there are a group of people who are still in control of the natural resources, the everything, and the riches, everything, and they are not black people, is not being disseminated out by black people out to the world, then you are not better than a group of people who created something from nothing and it spreads out across the world. So no one is better than anyone else. And so if you are that, so I question people who are making the music, because are you making the music because you want to get a quick buck and then later move on and do something else? Or are you actually in the struggle where there's intricacies within the struggle of what's being said in the record about people killing each other in the neighborhoods, and then at the same time, like Tupac was able to tell the story, and he would have upliftment records. He would say, well, we did this, and then we come out of this. Like, matter of fact, his first album, he was talking about breaking his brother out of jail, right? Yeah. And he was talking about that, and it was upliftment, and he had songs about the conditions of black women in the community too, right? He had that, but he also had the rah-rah, right? So it all depends. So I just have to question people's motives if they aren't on the 1619 thought, because this is very important, because what we're seeing on television right now, and with him being caught up in this immigration situation, this is 400 years, 1619 to 2019 is 400 years of this particular situation in America, and where we are going from here. So people have to wake up and not be fooled, and not have people come in just because they have the same skin color as you. Don't mean that they're you. You may be my color, but mentally you are not my kind. Okay? And we can't have people who want to push more for women. You know what I'm saying? Which a women's struggle is out there, that's cool, but you know, they had Susan B. Anthony, but Susan B. Anthony and all the Margaret Sanger were eugenicists who believed in trying to wipe black people out. They want the black man to have the vote before they had the vote, but yet all the time they were supposed to be abolitionists. But when it came time for black people to advance, they said, not before me. Get back in the back. You see? So we can't really talk about women's issues unless we're talking about black women's issues.
That's why I respected Celia Cruz, because she said she was a black woman. She was Afro-Latina, just like with Amira La Negra of Love and Hip Hop. she says she's a Latina woman, but she knows she's Afro-Latina. She's a black woman.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I mean, some of those other ones, you know, and
So-
it's just so funny. You know, I sit up there, you see these people on television or whatever, and Love and Hip Hop. Now, Blackest Day, you know, clearly black women, and then they make derogatory remarks about black American women. And so they're saying, no, I'm Latino. Girl, please. If you didn't open your damn mouth, the person would think you was just a black American.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's just crazy. And the opportunity that you have is through black
people.
Black people on
The vehicle
the
of
culture.
music.
You take on the culture, the
Right.
clothes, just the whole black American swag. Although Mona Scott, her background is Haitian, but she says she's a black woman. So for those that are on her platform, this black Haitian woman, and to sit and make derogatory remarks about black American women is baffling to me. So it's just crazy.
So we can't talk
It's crazy.
women's rights unless we're talking about black women's rights.
Right.
Because black women,
Right.
who are the most beautiful on the planet. I love the way Godfrey, if you get a chance,
Right.
watch Godfrey's latest interview on Vlad TV.
Okay.
Vlad TV. He talks about it, and it's so true. The most beautiful on the planet, black
Right.
women, the best built, the most educated
Which
in the
everyone
United
emulates.
States. The way that black women
Build a
talk,
body.
the way black women talk, the way that they gesture their hands,
Right.
all taken and used by other people. Can't other people just have their own culture? If they want to disrespect black women
Right.
in particular,
Right.
why don't you have your own culture the way that
Right.
you speak? Quit being what was that? Catch you outside. Quit being like that. I mean, quit being like that. Quit taking on when women have to get angry, but you use that as your selling point of acting so-called quote unquote ratchet
Right.
all of the time.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Quit using those things that black women use to defend themselves as your selling point,
Right.
where you're gonna be like that all the time.
That's when black women is convenient. They're
That's right.
schizophrenic.
The way, and just on the whole, on the total whole though,
Right.
the way black people walk, the way we talk, the way we dress,
Right.
the type of music that we make,
Right.
the way that we relate in the world
Right.
is our culture,
Right.
which is within the hip hop culture, within jazz culture, within R&B culture, within gospel, right? The way that we express ourselves is in that. And how come you just can't come in and bring your own culture? If that's what you are, don't come in and assimilate and take on what we look like, the invasion of the black body snatchers. Don't do that. And we're talking about, at this point, I'm talking about everyone around the globe.
Yeah.
What's your culture really look like?
Right.
Because all I'm seeing is our culture being emulated. I don't see what your culture is really like. You know, so if you don't like it, don't do it. So
Don't emulate it. Don't
that
build a
don't-
body.
you know, so I was just wondering about that, because it's real strange, and like I said, to talk about the 21 Savage situation in a different aspect, which is this is the ushering in of thinning out the herd of black people in America by taking those who stayed their welcome a little bit too long.
Right.
They have profited off of something that they shouldn't have profited off of. And so we're seeing the beginning of this. So get ready. Lock in your safety belts. Lock in your safety belts, because this starts it right here. Right? So now, what do you think about them though deporting before we move on to Mahershala Ali and him starring in
True Detective.
True
Season
Detective.
3.
What do you think about them doing that and thinning out the herd? What do you think about that concept of them thinning out the herd, moving into pulling out black people who would be considered black, who are here past their visa or past their immigration status?
I think that it's time for them to, what is that Spike Lee's movie, School Days, at the end when they say wake up? Like, they need to wake up and realize that you're no better than Native Blacks. Actually, what Beyonce says, what's her song? Bow down. Bow down. They really need to respect Native Blacks, because what our ancestors did for them and led the way for them and built the opportunity for them to come over here to this country. So what they need to do now is let that mind get to clicking and say, hey, we need to get together with them and learn how to love each other and work together.
Because even Nelson Mandela said he kind of structured his way of thinking around what was happening with the civil rights movement here in this country.
I mean, they have the platform, they have the blueprint,
There it is.
And so just
quit coming in and co-opting something and then trying to look down on the other people when all we do is show you
really
love.
Need to be like, wow. Like, to me, I mean, well, it's amazing like what we did. Most people
can't do it. They can't even do it in their own countries.
Yeah, right.
And we weren't
slavery.
We didn't know the language.
Right. We didn't know
learned the language.
Right.
Knew all the skilled labor.
Right.
Knew how to build.
Educated
knew how to
ourselves.
plant.
Right.
Knew all that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We came here skilled.
Nobody else did that.
They only took the strongest.
They came over
and the
here
brightest.
to America. What do they call this? The land of what? Milk and honey. So they jumped from their country to over here, and they were able to benefit from the labors of our ancestors. So how can you not respect those people and admire them? So, I mean, like, they need to really
This is what I always said
work
about
on themselves.
This is what I always said about the
Get that
Arabs.
self-hate out.
The Arabs that came into the black neighborhoods, right?
Right.
I always said that they just because the people don't know who they are,
Right.
just because there's segments of black people in this country who
Right.
don't know who they are
Right.
and the contributions that were made because they don't teach them in the schools because
Right.
they're trying to keep people dumb, deaf, and blind in the school systems. Because if the people ever learn who they are as a mass whole, they're in fear that they will rise.
Right.
And that's all I always said about the Arabs that came. And I'll even say it about the Vietnamese and the Koreans that would come and open up stores. Just because the people don't know who they are doesn't mean that it gives you the right to treat them less than. Because if it wasn't for the struggle of people in this country that were here from 1619, you wouldn't be able to be in this country enjoying
Because if they would
enjoying the set aside.
Yeah, because if they could do it, they would have did it in their country, and they wouldn't have to come to America.
That's right. And so that's really what it is if you could have done it in your country, you would have done it in your country. And so let's be more respectful of those, even if they don't know who they are. In the larger scheme of things in this world, be respectful. Because in a minute, as this starts to go on and continue, and if you keep acting so disrespectful, we're going to say, well, we're happy that the herd is thinning out and send you back to your country. Goodbye. And we'll keep going. So I can't wait till they start snatching the ones off of TV who don't actually fight the black battle on TV who let things slide where when we were on TV, we didn't let it slide. I can't wait to start seeing those people start to get rounded up and taken out. Unfortunately, we have to be more discriminate. We do.
Yeah, that's okay.
Go ahead. What you say?
Nothing.
Oh, you're gonna
I agree.
We have to start to become, as people who were here from 1619, we have to be more discriminate, not discrimination, but more discriminate on who we let into the circle of being black if they're not willing to kick the message and willing to get out there. And that's what's been happening with the immigration system, letting in people to keep us confused. But with the 21 Savage situation, he had me confused because I thought he was black here since 1619, but kind of find out he wasn't. And so now I look at his music differently. And I look at his awakening.
Because I remember when you were like, oh, you should hear.
Yeah, there's Savage and J. Cole. I said, but now I look at his.
Talking about before he did the song with J. Cole. This is when he first came
out.
Oh,
that's right. I was talking about his flow.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, hey, that's pretty good. I thought, oh, yeah, he's coming from ATL. I said, oh, this is nice right here. But now I look at it different.
Well, I think, he grew up. In his
he
mind,
grew up there, but
in his mind, he's a black American.
When people don't speak out on necessarily issues, and there's a lot of rappers who don't, and you say, why won't you? Because there's a whole line of struggle within hip hop in records, right? And but you're gonna say, I don't know anything about that. Well, then we have to check out where your immigration status or your people status is from 1619, or are you just newly here in the last 50 years? And so that's what we need to know. So now that was robust on that, and we got to the point where we put all the aspects out there. Look at Harry Belafonte.
And he rides for
black different people. Type of immigrants. When I was talking about Cool Herc, them coming here, and it was a different fight. Now it's different. Now people want to assimilate instead of being about the pride of being a black person globally. Okay, so we're gonna move on from that now. We hit all aspects of it, and we brought it. But get ready for, because this is about to start. They're getting ready to thin out the herd.
Oh, Marcus Garvey. You can't forget about him.
Marcus Garvey. He came here and
he was just for his people. I love people who, no matter where you come from, as long as you respect.
And who else rode?
And Fidel love Castro. Your people, no
and
matter
Fidel
where.
Castro came in. And who did he sit under? Marcus Garvey. Right? Yeah. Protected in Harlem while he was here by Garveynites.
Yeah, so as long as there's no envy and hate and little nasty words and backstabbing towards Native Blacks, Black Americans, it's all good.
It's all good in the hood.
But when you have nothing but negativity and nasty words and you're black when it's convenient, and you're quick to talk down and say negative stuff about Native Blacks, Black Americans, then I don't have any respect for you. To me, you're as bad as the oppressor.
Especially when you couldn't do it in your own country.
That. Because if you're not, what do they say? If you're not for me, you're against me.
Right.
And it's just as clear as that. There's no gray areas. It's just, to me, either you're for me or you're against me. And if we not going to battle together, clearly you're not for me. Okay. So
right.
True.
So we're moving on. So Mahershala Ali.
Yeah.
And see we don't know what his background is, right? But we're still showing love because he is a black person. He embodies blackness when he gets up on the screen.
Right.
He embodies strong black male characters. You know what I mean? And dignified male characters. So he is starring in the 3rd season of True Detective. Executive produced by Matthew McConaughey and that other guy, Woody Harrelson,
Yep.
executive produced. Now, if you saw
Season one, which was excellent as well.
this is like in a different city, however, but it's like a pickup from season 1, because season 2, I was disappointed because I didn't believe that the person who was the villain, which was played by
Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn.
I
did not believe
he was treated fairly.
Yeah, I didn't think he was treated fairly through the whole thing, and I didn't think the way it ended. Well, you'll see that season.
Okay.
You'll see that season, but we're talking about now the way it comes back in is the dialogue. But we'll get to that. Okay, so Mahershala Ali plays Wayne Hayes.
Yeah.
He is a 70-year-old man who is looking back over his life and the one case that he was never able to solve, and if he can, before he passes from this plane of existence, of this plane of consciousness, he would like to solve this case. But there is a problem. He is suffering from memory loss. It could be dementia. It could be Alzheimer's. It could be, it's not well broken down what it could be. It's as if he really doesn't want to know. Right? So
he's a detective and he's a Vietnam War veteran.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's what it is. So he's in his 70s and he's looking back, and all of different things are converging on him at once. The loss of his wife, the intrusion in his life of a reporting team that wants to know about the past, and the process, because maybe, just maybe, someone was wrongfully accused and then named, besmirched by overzealous prosecutors in that time, and he has been tortured over it all those years because him and his partner, who's played by
Stephen
Dorff, who plays Roland West, they were looking in another direction, and this is the premise of the story, and this is where it's working, and it moves, man. And what is so special about this is the initiating event, people, happens in the flashback. Now, they teach you in film school, never have the initiating event happen in the flashback, but however, it happens in the flashback. It's beautiful. And another thing about True Detective episode 3 is it goes through generations.
Yeah, it does.
It goes through
great makeup work on.
Yes. It goes through 3 different periods in his life. Period in the 80s, the 90s, and then it's modern time, few years back, 2015. Okay? Beautifully done. Okay.
So is it, you see, as Stephen Dorff as well as Mahershala Ali, the age of, what is it, maybe 20? Is it 30?
They might be in their 30s, and then you see them again in the 90s.
Age
Yeah. So 70s would probably be 30s, 80s would probably be like 50s.
Okay.
And then
present day is
20s.
70s.
Yeah, 70s, right. 80s is 30, 50s, and then 70 about 70. Right. Beautifully done. The way that they age up the men and the women and the secondary characters that play in this, beautiful. You see people who were playing teenagers who look like older men and women who are younger than the detectives at the time. You know, all throughout 3 periods, but they've aged them, and it's just incredible. It's just incredible work. Okay. So you see in the initiating event starts in the 80s. Now, let's get on the politics before. Well, let's run the story. So we gave you that. So he's been tortured and he's been trying to solve this case since the 1980s. Now, politics in the film. I don't know if they intentionally meant to do this or if it's just something that just because of the time period of telling the truth, right? So after the 60s and the civil rights movement, so many assassinations, black people were then beginning to become upwardly mobile with the Civil Rights Act, the Voter Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act of 68. They started to become upwardly mobile. They started to, through affirmative action, began to be placed in places because, you know, the Good Old Boys Club was always their affirmative action. So being that people's hearts and minds, their heart couldn't help them change their mind because their heart was so whiteness that they could not change their mind from whiteness. Affirmative action had to be put in place. And don't let people like Clarence Thomas tell you that it makes us feel bad. No, the only people who may feel bad about affirmative action are those who were listening to what their European American counterparts was telling them about affirmative action, and they fell for the okie doke. Okay, so here's 1980. Wayne Hayes, Mahershala Ali's character, is the lead detective, the head of the department in 1980, and his partner is basically his sidekick, right? He's the one who smooths over the bigots, because there are still people. He's in this town in Arkansas, in the Ozarks, and he's in this town, and he often tells him that they're not my tribe, man. And so that's what he has him there for, to push through and do this, right? So what it shows you the 80s, the 90s, and today, all right? So in the 80s, like I said, black people were upwardly mobile. Affirmative action were putting them in their rightful places, right? Putting us in our rightful place. I'm not going to use that. We're putting us in our rightful places, and where our brains showed that we were supposed to be there. Okay? So arguably in the room, Wayne Hayes is the most analytical and most thoughtful detective in the room, breaking down and deciphering this case. So as you watch this, you see, but there's always a group of people, like when he tells the people who are under him, his subordinates, to do something, they stand there looking at him like, oh, I gotta do this. Or if he's speaking to some of the people, they will look over at his partner to answer him, right? Because they are not ready. So what this shows you is 1980, black people was in their places. Reagan also came into the presidency in the 80s. And by the time he was done, black people were laid off from their positions. He turned the clock back with his Southern strategy election, saying, let's make America great again. We've heard that before, right? So he pushes this whole thing. He moves the advances that black people made back now. And I saw that firsthand as a child, and I saw that with black men that I knew who were in positions, who were qualified to have those positions, but they were always double thought, and soon they found a way to get them out of place. So now we come into the 90s, and the 90s finds him no longer in that position. He's been moved out of that position, and now he has a desk job, right? And his partner now is a lieutenant
Yeah.
with the office, with the name on the door, and he was not the smarter of the two detectives.
Right.
So this is showing you, I don't know if they were showing you directly or indirectly, or just because that's how the story would go, because that's the truth of what was actually happening.
Right.
And what actually happened, black people were put into subordinate positions with people who were on top, who may have one time been their subordinate, right? And so this is what's happening in the 90s. And then you come into 2015, and now you look at what's going on now in 2019. Right. It's a replay again of the 1980s, but this time on steroids, where we never really recovered from not only Reagan coming in, but then the crack epidemic happening, and now it's a replay again of the 1980s, right? And so this is what these 3 points are. And so each time that you see him, as he ages, he becomes less confident. And not to mention that the stresses of the 80s and the 90s has caused him to begin to have memory loss. But he's trying to hold on to his memory long enough to solve this case. Beautifully woven, the story, beautifully woven in, the politic, beautifully woven in. You have to watch season 3 of True Detective.
Great show. I love the writing, the acting. I love to see how, like, we talked about the different periods in the makeup, like the way they aged them. They go from looking super young, middle age, to elderly men. And it is so convincing. Like the work that they did on them was nice. There's, I don't want to tell it, but there's many scenes, but this one particular scene between Mahershala Ali and Stephen Dorff will just, whoa. The acting is superb. Like the way they're going, just not going at it, but the discussion, because you see not only a friendship, but a brotherhood. And there's a touching scene when, like, they're like, the acting is superb. They're going at it. It's just like, which one is controlling the scene? Because the acting is so good.
And you also see through the supervisor subordinate relationship begin to change.
Yeah.
And you can see by the time that they're elderly that the roles have been set at that point, and there's really no coming back from that. And the whole purpose of a black man as he gets older in this society, and I would say, I don't know about other places around the globe, but I would say in this society in America, is to be able to not be the subordinate. I will say that straight up, not a subordinate under someone who is not from their heritage or their culture. That's what I would say from that. Now, the use of storytelling through the movement of camera.
Oh yeah, the camera work is beautiful.
The angles that they tell, the leading lines that they use to tell this story, the dominance and the recessiveness traits within the characters and how it's shown, how they represent the movement of people in spaces and time. Just beautifully done.
The costuming, well done too, because you really think you're within that time period. Like the hairstyles, the clothing, the demeanor, just everything is just perfect. Well done.
How things are modern and then how they fade away. Beautifully done. The use of lighting in close-in spaces. There's a scene where Mahershala Ali's character, Wayne Hayes, is going through a mental disturbance.
Oh, yeah.
And his past is coming back to haunt him, and the way that they depict that in the film, it is not use of green screen, so using lighting in compact areas beautifully, the storytelling beautiful. Besides the dialogue, which is A1, there's a scene in there where the guy, I'm not going to even say it because you have to see it, but he talks about being asleep and being awake, and the difference. You have to watch this. The dialogue alone is A1, but the use of camera to tell the story, the story through the silent images of the picture, of the flicker of the picture, beautifully done. The scene between a person who is a Native American and and Mahershala Ali's character is just gut wrenching,
powerful,
and sad, and it's unbelievable. And it's one of the things that leads could possibly later, as they build the story, tell you why his mind is slipping to forget. Okay, so True Detective, the first 4 episodes are up for the first 5. First 5 are up for binge watching right now. That's on HBO.
We can't forget Carmen Eje.
Carmen Yeho. Yeho.
Great.
She plays
Amelia Reardon.
She plays his person who helps him with the case, and then it seems like there's a love interest building there, and that's all we're gonna say about that. But you see black romance on the screen, and the understanding of a man and having a woman that is strong. You know what I'm saying? And let's break this for a minute, because we often talk about black women, and then we were talking about the politics that's happening right now. If you're not talking about, we can move women politics out of the way. Black women politics, if you're a black woman and you're a candidate and you're not talking black women politics in particular, now listen, black women are strong. Like I said, they're taking the different movements and actions and using it to profit off of it, the build, the look, the ability to communicate and be strong. They're taking all that, and other women use it and steal it, and they're considered passive and dormant. But the black woman is considered disagreeable and angry when they use it. Listen, if you're not talking black women politics, then we don't want to hear nothing from you as a candidate talking about women politics. Because like I said, Margaret Sanger, that's enough to just throw suffrage out the window and throw burning the bras. You just throw that out the window because we're talking about black women now. The story is so much in it. It's so interwoven in, but to see the strength of the black woman on the screen and a man who is able to not be a weak punk and say that he will want something else, just my opinion. He's able to understand it, and they have an understanding, and they still stay together, though she is a strong woman, strong black woman, right? So if we're not talking black politics and black woman politics, women politics as a whole, I don't feel like jumping in there to that intersectionality, because that's not working. Because this is what this is coming to. 400 years now, people. 1619, 2019. This is the turning point. In what is it? In 2020, that's also the anniversary of women's suffrage, right? right?
Yep.
Right to vote, right?
Yep.
Right? And so white women would want to overtake and be more important than the whole movement of black people, and we cannot be shot in the foot again. So that's what I say about that. So
I would give it
go ahead. So that's
10.
why I say the True Detective is well worth watching. It's so intricately woven, and it shows a man that is there to try to get back his rightful place, right? So what would you rate the film? We went through dialogue.
Complex.
Yeah, we went through dialogue. We went through character. We went through how it spans, decades, and it spans 80s,
We
90s,
about
and modern. The lighting,
the makeup,
the pacing of people and spaces and time,
the relationship amongst the characters,
the love interest relationships, everything. So what would you rate?
Definitely,
what would you rate the show?
Definitely a 10. Great acting from beginning to end. Like the pacing. I mean, I'm just big on pacing. If it's gonna put me to sleep, I don't have time for it. But this right here will keep you gripped, and I can only binge watch it because it's like so good that you hate to wait another week for the next episode. You just want to knock out at least 2 or 3 of them in a row. Mm-hmm. So really, really good show. I would definitely give it a 10.
10. Yeah, I want to give it a 10 for exactly everything that we said.
Yeah.
It's well worth watching. Now, moving on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a movie that was somewhat a sleeper, though it did well at the box office for what it cost to make, right?
Right.
But it was expected to do more, I'm sure. I'm sure it was expected to do Space Jam type things.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the movie Uncle Drew.
Yeah.
And it's starring
Lil Rel, Kyrie Irving, Shaquille O'Neal, Reggie Miller, Nate Robinson, Chris Webber, Lisa Leslie, Nick Kroll, Erica Ashe, Tiffany Haddish, J.B. Smoove, Aaron Gordon, and Mike Epps.
Now, the way that they promoted Uncle Drew, they promoted it as a vehicle for
Kyrie Irving.
For Kyrie Irving.
Right.
But the story is about Lil Rel's character,
Dax.
right? And it's about him overcoming his feelings of being inadequate. He's a young boy who was basically an orphan. He was an orphan, and he was in the orphanage, and it appears that no family came to get him.
Right.
So one day as he was out, he came across a television, and he started watching Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan became his hero.
Yeah.
And from there, his self-esteem built from the love of basketball. He put Michael Jordan on his wall. He measured as he got larger to make sure his wingspan was as large as Jordan's. You know what I'm saying? He may not have quite got there, but Jordan was his hero, and basketball was his esteem builder, and he was considered great. And then, again, the initiating event in this film happens in the flashback.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Then something happens on the basketball court which causes him dismay and also causes people to make fun of him, and from then on, he has suffered all the way into adulthood to try to overcome this, what would be considered a disgrace at the hands of
Nick Kroll, Mookie,
right? So he's a person who is down and out between jobs, but his main thing is to stay in basketball, though he no longer plays, and he is a coach, and he's putting a team together for the world famous Rutgers basketball tournament that happens in the summer. But his nemesis, Mookie, steals his team, and that's where his dramatic need is introduced, right? The initiating event happens in the flashback. His dramatic need happens as he's an adult, and then he goes out to find the team, and he winds up at the neighborhood barbershop, and that's where JL Smooth says, "Go get Uncle Drew," and the story kicks off from there. Now, this movie is hilarious.
It is very funny.
It is hilarious. Now listen, I read some reviews on it, and they talked about how the script wasn't that good, that the concept was good, but the script wasn't that good. I totally disagree with that. I think they're totally wrong, and I'll say that. The movie is hilarious. It's going to be a classic.
Yeah.
It's a classic.
Like Uptown
Saturday Night. Like the music in it.
Yeah.
You know, connecting the generations beautifully. The pacing on it excellent, but the movie is just hilarious.
It is funny.
And the points where it has to be serious, it is very serious. There's no buffooning or cooning on the screen whatsoever. It is well worth watching. Uncle Drew. I just wish that they had pushed, and they probably will now because Lil Rel's career is taking off, so they may start to repackage it more as a coming of age story and overcoming. A coming of age overcoming story with a hero that still pushes on though he doubts himself.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And how through belief in people who have a story to tell, who are maybe considered older and usually are discarded, through having faith in them, he's able to overcome because then they have faith in him. Right? And so we can't really give the plot away on it because you need to see this film. Yeah. You can go right on to, where did we see it at?
It was on HBO.
HBO. No, I thought it was on
HBO.
HBO. Okay. So see it on HBO on demand, you know, and you will love this film. The basketball in it is great, right? The basketball scenes authentic in nature.
And you get to see some of the original Rutgers players.
The players talking within the film. They don't actually play.
They don't play, but they give like commentary.
You get to see Pee Wee Kirkland.
Yeah.
He talks about this fictitious character, Uncle Drew.
Yeah.
And so you see him, so he does his thing. And it's just a beautiful picture. You get to see people as they go into their other lives as they get older. You get to see all that as they put this team together. Yeah. And Lisa Leslie.
Oh yeah,
she plays. I mean, it is one of the funniest scenes in the movie with her and Reggie Miller. I mean, they really played this, and it's well done. And Chris Webber, you will not know Chris Webber.
Oh yeah, you won't.
You will not know him.
You're trying to figure out who's who behind the different costumes.
Right. You won't know him, and you won't know
Nate Robinson.
You won't know Nate Robinson III. You won't know him behind the makeup. I'm telling you, it's beautiful. And then Shaq, listen.
Oh yeah.
Shaq's makeup, he should be in a kung fu flick with that.
He should.
For real. I mean, you'll see it. You'll see it. It's well worth it. It's heartfelt. The plot line is tight. The dialogue is tight. The pacing is there. The basketball sequences are there. The camaraderie and love, and there's a romance story within it.
It's nice.
That's right. They don't have her listed. Do
Yeah,
they?
Erica Ash.
That's right. Erica Ash. You know her from In Contempt.
Yeah.
And before that, Survivor's Remorse.
Morse. Yeah, LeBron James show.
That's right. She,
Excellent.
her as an actor she's just great.
She
it's
is
just great.
really, really good.
Just
Because on
believable.
Survivor's Remorse, which is another great show, I mean, the writing on that show is just superb. Excellent cast.
Yes, it was.
So when we saw her on that show, then we said, okay, she's a really good actress. And
In Contempt. She's
yeah,
real
and
good.
then so that's why
That's
we
on BET for people who
Yeah,
don't know.
so that's what made us start watching In Contempt, because Erica Ash was on the show, and we knew she was going to bring it because she's a really good actress. And in this movie, she doesn't disappoint.
She doesn't disappoint.
Yeah.
So we went through it. We don't have to go through it anymore. They just have to see the film.
See it.
What would you rate this film?
Well, of course, I'm going to give it a 10 because I was laughing. I loved the cast. It was nice to see these athletes act. I mean, I knew Shaq could act, but to see the rest of them, just hilarious. So definitely.
And actually, it's gonna be a cult classic.
Yeah.
I believe, because first of all, it's really, even though it was set again as a vehicle for Kyrie Irving, kind of like the Space Jams was for Michael Jordan,
Right.
or Like Mike was for Bow Wow.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But you're not going to talk about his trouble right now. Or Whoopi Goldberg's film, or Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson, White Man Can't Jump.
Yeah.
All these different basketball films that are around, or Martin Lawrence's Rebound.
Right.
Love
and basketball, we can't forget about that.
Oh yeah, Love and Basketball, classic. But it's well worth it. What would you rate it?
Oh, 10, definitely.
10? That's right. I rated it 10 also.
Yeah.
So listen, people. This has been a robust episode. We have covered so much.
Yeah.
Go back, watch it from the beginning. Put your comments in. Tell us what you think.
And enjoy
You know what
all
I'm
of the
saying?
films. Because
Enjoy
they're
all
all
the
really
films.
good.
So, this is the 4th day of Black History Month. And you know what's coming up? Wait a minute. We're not really, we've been through some things. But you know what's coming up? Tomorrow is the debut of American Soul. American Soul on BET. American Soul. Coming up on BET, it is the story of Don Cornelius and the making of Soul Train.
So make sure
right?
you watch it so we can interact and you give us your opinion and tell
That's
us
right.
what you
Because we're going to
liked
be up
about
right
it
after
and-
it happens.
Yeah.
We're going to be there, right? So look,
So
February
instead of a book club, it's a movie review club.
Movie Review Club. That's right. February 8th, Taraji P. Henson in What Men Want debuts in the theaters. February 8th. February 9th. Here's a sleeper, people, that people didn't know about. February 9th is the Teddy Pendergrass documentary
I'm looking
coming on
forward to
HBO.
that. Yes.
If you don't know me by now, that's right.
Is that HBO or Showtime?
It's Showtime. That's right. We're on so many different channels, but it's coming up. Make sure you chime in on that, because we're going to be talking about that, because Teddy Pendergrass, was a
R&B soul
trendsetter.
legend.
You know what I'm saying? Way back from
Soul
Harold
legend.
Melvin and the Blue Notes,
Yep.
until Gamble and Huff took him solo and took him to his heights,
Looking
to
forward to
the
seeing
tragedy.
it. Yeah, looking
Right.
forward to seeing it.
So more coming up. You know what I'm saying? There's other films. Mahershala Ali is making his rounds because he's in that Alita movie, which I'm glad that they cut a new trailer.
Yeah.
Because the trailer with the women power, that was cool, but this new trailer incorporates kung fu and it introduces him
Right.
And they probably recut it because he won the Golden Globe, and he won the what was the other? He won two.
The
Actors Guild.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe he might have won an Emmy too. He's been winning so many awards.
So
didn't he win a? I can't remember.
The Golden Globe.
Last year he won a
year before for his
the
portrayal,
Oscar, right?
Right, for his portrayal
in Moonlight.
Moonlight, right? That was year before,
right? So he's been
gradually advancing up, and so they decided
deserved.
And so they recut the trailer and they put him in there to introduce it more as a heroine villain pairing instead of just being woman power, right? Which is a better trailer. And it lets you know that there's more to it. And, you know, that has spurred us to say we're going to see. Because at first I said, I don't know if we're going to go see this movie. But they cut it again, but he's in it.
The acting is going to be.
And it's going to be believable.
Yeah.
Right. So like I said, those are the things that we're looking forward to. We're going to be in tune with you tomorrow. Yeah. But we want to thank all of you for tuning in and watching.
Thank you.
Don't forget, Crazy D Film Do /channel on Instagram.com, SoundCloud.com /the Film Review, where you can hear the replays of these. You can hear us on blogtalkradio.com /the Film Review and more. Because there are more. That's when we go to the phones and we talk to you on the phones and we get to interact with you on the phones. Also, Lordlandfilmsdotcom. That is the website where you can see the Black Ice Chronicles and season 5 and 6 of the Black Ice Chronicles web series. That's there. Let's see what else. Lordlandfilms.com or just Lordland Films on Facebook. Go there and join. The Film Review on Facebook. Go there and join. And then, of course, on YouTube.com /Crazon Dion. That's CRAYZONDEEYON, all one word. You go there and you can watch all of the film reviews. Like when we take this out and we put the film review magic, it's Blackwood, where we change up the background from the green screen to the backdrop to,
film magic.
Yeah, the film magic. So stay tuned for that. So again, we are the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy D.
I'm Tracey.
And we review culture and movies, music, politics, and society because you have been watching and you continue to watch. We appreciate you. The Film Review. Movies, music, culture, politics, and society podcast.
Advertise on shows produced by Lordlandfilms.com. The Film Review, movies, music, culture, and whatever else comes to mind. Brought to you by Lordlandfilms.com. The hosts, Crazy D and Tracey Dion. All music heard on The Film Review, available on iTunes, Apple Music. Live stream recording and audio, Crazon Dion. Research on topics, Tracey Dion. The Film